I had worked at a restaurant and bar at the time, and I got some like liquor-soaked cherries. That was really fun.
Hey, one.
Hey everyone, and welcome to The Inside, a podcast where we get into the extraordinary minds and experiences of everyday people. I'm Jay, and with me, as always, is Adam. Hey, Adam, how's it going, eh?
Pretty good, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Pretty good. What have you been up to?
I started a new job 3 weeks ago, so I'm kind of settling into that, kind of learning the ropes, figuring out what weekly schedules are going to look like, but
Yeah.
settling in nicely, as well as you can for a new job. What about you? What have you been up to?
Well, I have been really enjoying working in the garden lately, raising lots of vegetables. We finally have a place where there's lots of sunshine and heat and stuff, and can grow.
What are you growing?
Oh man, what are we not growing? Right?
Weed.
Well, okay, right. Yes, let's be clear. We are not growing weed, although there are some weeds, different kinds.
Well, I don't have a garden, but I also live in the city. Not that I couldn't grow a garden, but I'm sure it would not be anywhere near as big as yours. But if I did grow a garden, I would want to grow some rice in it, just because it's just a staple around the world, like rice and beans.
Yeah,
but,
right.
And others.
Oh no, you're right. I mean, you said around the world. I mean, there's so many cultures that grow and use rice in their food like daily.
Yeah, but I was trying to sound impressive, and I was going to list a bunch of other rice dishes, but I couldn't.
Well, trust me, rice and beans that's a good place to start for sure. Kind of reminds me of that song about rice. Do you know what I'm talking
about? The Travis Tritt song?
Yeah.
It's like, I got my rice cooking in the Chevrolet. I got a 3-day.
What? What'd you say? I got the rice cooking in what?
The Chevrolet.
No, dude, that is so funny. It is not. I got the rice. I can't even say it. I got the rice cooking in my microwave.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
That's BS.
No, it really is. Yeah. All right, get on your Spotify and check it out. It's
no.
Like,
all right, I'll take your word for it. So I've just been saying it wrong for years. All right.
Well, wait. I just want you to think about it for a minute. Who would cook? You'd have to have like a microwave in the Chevrolet.
No, you can cook it on the hood, like between the engine block and the hood.
Okay.
Or if he's this bachelor guy who has a 3-day beard, he might not care. He's just stirring one of those instant microwave, not microwave, instant. Shut up, instant things. Anyway,
okay. Let's just. I will say, if we're talking about rice cooking in a microwave, which I'm not even sure how that happens, but you can do some basic cooking in a microwave. Like
what?
You can. Well, like they've got those little cake things that like cook in a coffee cup, and what I like to do in a pinch is like put a couple eggs in a coffee cup and put salt and pepper, cheese, if you got some veggies or even like some bacon or something you want to throw in there. And
like
then
a poor man's omelet.
Yeah. But you throw that all in a cup and cook that for like a minute in the microwave, sometimes a minute and a half, depends. And you like pull that out. It's like this fluffy, eggy thing in a coffee cup. It's totally edible, and you can eat it like right out of that cup, or you could have made a bagel at that same time and like throw that on a bagel, and like you're good to go with an egg sandwich in like 2 minutes. It's awesome.
I don't know. I'm not a big egg guy, really, but I have tried those cake coffee cup things. You take your coffee mug, you put the mix in the microwave. Have you had one?
Yeah, I have.
It's like a step up from one of those easy bake ovens. Have you ever used one of those?
Right.
Powered kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean everything's a step up from that, right?
Yeah, I mean those. My cousin used to make them for us when she was little, and they were like these really crappy small cakes.
So it's basically like a plastic box with a light bulb in it, right? Like just like
Yeah, and the heat from the light bulb cooks the batter. Yeah, and it makes a little cake. I love me some
Well,
cake, man.
yeah, like like the band.
Yeah, like we're totally going the distance on this intro. Dave, are we
Okay,
allowed to,
I hear what you're saying there.
you do?
I get the plug.
Hang on. Are we allowed to say that, Dave? Okay. I just want to make sure you didn't get any legal trouble.
Well, now that we're talking about cake, let's just keep going, okay?
All right.
Yeah, like I'm really excited about our guest today, Ashley, because she's a person who really knows her way around baking, and maybe she can help us figure out why the Easy Bake Oven isn't really the best way to go.
Yeah, I'm really excited to hear what she says. So how about this? Why don't we hop off here, take a quick break, and make some Easy Bake Oven stuff, and then we'll hear what she has to say.
Yeah, can't wait.
Sweet.
Well, Adam, I'm super excited to talk to our guest today.
Yeah, me too. Welcome on board, Ashley.
Hey, well, hello.
Hey, what's up?
Oh, just another one of those liquid sunshine kind of days in Seattle,
Oh, you're
as
from
we like
Seattle?
to call it. Yes. Oh, yeah. It's pretty nice.
What's it like out there?
It's pretty good. It's been raining this week, quite a bit, as you might expect, but it's actually pretty sunny. I will say that summers in Seattle are pretty unmatched, and that's kind of like the best kept secret of Seattle, I think, is like we don't tell you how beautiful the summers are, but they're pretty lovely.
I do have a question. Is the coffee as good in Seattle as everyone says it is, or is that just like a stereotype?
Yeah, I think that's a funny question because when I first moved here, I moved here from North Carolina in 2017, so just a few years ago. I was kind of like I felt like an elitist, an anti-Seattle coffee elitist. I would be like, I know roasters in Waynesville, North Carolina that are way better. But then I found roasters that I really like out here, and now I'm definitely one of those coffee snobs, and my coffee budget, I don't think I should share because it's obscene, and I only drink black drip coffee, and it's still obscene.
Well, do you have the financial resources to support that? Like, what do you do for a living?
I'm a youth director, and I work at an Episcopal church. I come from the United Methodist tradition, but I was looking for a church that was, had a social justice kind of oriented lens. And so I actually came out here from a nationwide search that they made for a youth director position. And since since the nationwide shutdowns have happened with coronavirus, etc., I have also, as the resident millennial, transitioned into a communications role. So I do a lot of our filming of our worship services and a lot of YouTube content. So there you go. I'm our tech gal / youth associate right now. So yeah.
Well, I was thinking, just to go back to coffee for a second, you probably had this like I know everything about coffee thing, right? Because you worked in coffee.
Yeah,
right?
I worked in coffee I worked in Starbucks, which some I guess would argue about whether or not that counts in the snobby coffee world. But I worked at Starbucks for 4 years or 5 years since I was in high school, and then my last year of undergrad, I worked at a local coffee shop in Silva, North Carolina called City Lights. Shout out. Which was really fun. There was a bookstore on top, and so I got to be a snob about books and coffee, which was really extra fun.
So when you're not romping around Seattle with your fiance or doing your work or just coffee snobbing out, I've well, I know that you're a pretty good baker, and that's what we want to talk with you about today. And one of the first things I I haven't really experienced a lot of your baking, but I've seen on social media some of the pictures and stuff of the cakes and the bakes that you makes. And you're welcome.
This is
And-
Dr. Seuss.
Thank
pod.
Love it. Love it.
well, they're pretty amazing. Just tell us a little bit about your baking.
So I guess it's funny, Jay, you say you haven't really experienced them. And that sometimes surprises me, when people from college say that, but it's true. I didn't actually start making the cakes the way that I do now until my last semester in college. I had actually graduated in December and I was still living in Cullowhee. And my last semester, my cousin had seen some, honestly, like, grace goes out to her because when I look back on the things I baked and posted on Facebook in college, they are obscene and abhorrent and had a lot of food coloring. So I apologize. But she saw something in there, which was a magnificent miracle. And she asked me to make her wedding cake. And because I'm stupid and I don't know how to say no, I said yes. And it was the most overwhelming project I feel like I had had up to that point. And I had written many papers in my college career.
Were you still living? Were you still in Cullowhee at that time?
Yeah. I was still living in Cullowhee. I lived in this house that I shared with 6 other people. And
Wow.
I decided to make a 3-tier wedding cake in that house. So yeah, super smart kids. Yeah. But I did it and it was really fun. It took a while and I learned a lot in that process. And so when I ended up moving a few months later to Durham, North Carolina, where I went to grad school, and when you're in grad school, you are also broke, like really broke all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I found that the cheapest solution to celebrating birthdays was to start making people cakes. And so I kind of took on this habit, like for everybody's birthday, I would think of who they were and, their personalities, and I would make a recipe for them and make a cake. And, one of my roommates loved to make people cocktails. So he got an old-fashioned cake, which was actually pretty delicious, I have to say.
What is an old-fashioned cake?
Yeah, well, what is an old fashioned? Now I have to remember.
It's a drink. Okay. It's a liquor drink, an old fashioned.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And it probably had that in it.
It did. Yeah. So I had soaked the sponge with some whiskey. And I had used bitters in the frosting, and I had worked at a restaurant and bar at the time, and I got some liquor soaked cherries. That was really fun. It was pretty fun, but anyway, so I had my first kind of year of grad school, I made people these themed birthday cakes. And then the benefit of working in a restaurant in Durham is that people who care about that sort of thing. And so I started to get, people that I worked with would ask me to make a cake for a birthday or an occasion that they had coming up. And by the time I left Durham, I had about 2 orders a month from people I knew or friends of friends. And I got much better at it, right? There were plenty of failures, but there were also a lot of learning. And, I really took to it and felt like it was an art. And it was fun. So, yeah.
I knew another student later who paid for all her study abroad course fees and stuff by making
Cake pops.
Cake pops. Thank you.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. I wish I were that smart. Instead, I just left with a lot of student loan debt and cakes.
Do you just do cakes?
While I mostly do cakes, I also really love to experiment with all sorts of baked goods. I make bagels. I started making those when I lived by myself in college and was bored and needed something to do. But that's kind of fun. I make bagels and I'll actually host I've lived with roommates forever because again, I'm broke all the time. So and I live in Seattle. But I'll host my roommates, and we have BYOF, bring your own flour. And I'll show them the process of making bagels. I make scones sometimes, or muffins. It's similar to the cakes. I really love to, I don't know. People always say that, cooking is the creative one and baking is scientific. I think that's garbage. I think once you learn the science of baking, once you kind of get the essentials down and learn how different ingredients interact with each other, I find that baking is equally as creative as cooking. And I think that's the fun of it,
I know we like to joke around a lot, but it's not just baking. You love to do some really some great cooking and make some great recipes and stuff too, right?
Yeah, I know. I do some cooking. I think that it's funny, unlike, I feel sometimes with baking, I'm actually able to be a bit more ambitious and free, whereas with cooking, sometimes I'll spend more time looking at a variety of recipes before I really dive into something. I think it took me like an hour and a half to come up with a pasta sauce recipe one time, just because I didn't want to mess it up. But I also think that as I do it a bit more, it'll be similar to baking. But I love cooking. I have more kitchen gadgets than anything else in my house, and that is enjoyable to me. I love making homemade pasta. That's another one of our favorites. I really, really, really love cooking things that involve other people. Pasta, you can easily show 4 other people how to do it with you. I think that cooking and baking, but probably even more so cooking, can be such a communal act and almost sacramental in that way, which is really exciting for me. I love things where you can gather people around a table, and I'll often, similar to the bagels, I'll have cooking parties. I had friends over a couple weeks ago, and we made a homemade vodka sauce pasta and homemade pasta. And I had written all of the ingredients on like a big whiteboard, and we turned on music, and, the 4 of us stood in the kitchen drinking gin and tonics and making pasta.
Yeah.
And it was really good.
And your biggest beneficiary, Travis, I'm sure he doesn't mind at all.
He doesn't, but he does do the dishes, and I don't mind that.
There's lots of points for doing dishes. Hey, are you listening to me, you non-cooking people out there? Do the dishes, okay?
The dishes.
And what that means is load the dishwasher, unload the dishwasher, and do all the hand washing. Okay? That's your tip from a guy who's been married for 24 years.
Yes. I don't know the appeal of buying any piece of equipment that you have to hand wash. Like my dad bought these knives. He's like, you can't put them in the dishwasher. And I'm like, that's so much extra work.
Disagree.
Okay. No, this is just youth. It's just youth. It's just youth, okay?
Youth?
Yeah.
You'll get it one day, young Adam.
Yeah, kitty. One day, kitty.
I'm sending out an SOS to anyone that's listening. Well, Ashley, you obviously have a lot of fun in the kitchen with baking and cooking and making all those gin and tonics and having fun with your friends. And baking looks like a really big stress reliever and a creative outlet. What's your biggest personal benefit you have with baking?
Yeah, I mean, I think you just said it, right? It is kind of a stress reliever. I mean, if you talk to anyone who's ever baked bread, they know, right? You're kneading the dough. There's something really cathartic about it. Get out all your anger. Have an angry coworker. Make some sourdough.
How's your baking changed throughout, like you said, the pandemic, but just over the years as like a large scale project you like to work on? Because you obviously seem pretty invested in baking and cooking.
Yeah, I mean, over time, I have definitely invested more in different pieces of equipment that kind of make my life a little easier. And it's kind of fun, like, especially in the beginning when I started to sell the cakes, I would sort of use that. I would immediately turn around the profits to buy like a fun piece of equipment for baking. And so, I got better at piping frosting onto cakes. There's definitely a difference between college cakes and the cakes I make now for the better. I promise to never use bright blue food dye in anything I make ever again. But I could not have told you that. If someone wants a Smurf cake, I'll read them lengthy articles about the dangers of artificial food coloring. But yeah, I'm just kidding.
Is there no, in all seriousness, is there something specific about the blue?
I don't think so. I know there is with red, but maybe with blue, and we'll find out in the next viral article, which I'll read and have shared, I guess, with me. I guess that's another way too. I've gone in cycles of like how hardcore I get with healthy baking, but it's been really fun too to experiment with alternatives in baking. Like, you can use avocado as a butter substitute because it has that same kind of fat consistency. It's especially good in cookies. You can make cookies with avocados and you wouldn't know the difference, and they're just as delicious, if even a little fluffier. And one fun thing is like red velvet cake you can make with beets. And I know that's probably striking some people as really weird right now, but it actually provides that kind of depth and that deep red color. I don't know. I think as you learn about baked goods and even the history of baked goods, there's something fun about reclaiming some of the roots. Like red velvet cake did not used to use red food dye. It was just red velvet because of the consistency of chocolate that was in it, and the depth of color that it had. And over time, as a culture who loves food dye, I guess, we started putting that in cakes. But as I made it more and decided I wanted to go a more natural route with the ingredients that I used, it was fun to kind of research the roots and history of the cake and realize that was never even a part of it. And so how can I reclaim the best parts of this cake while still making it something that is healthy and consumable for everyday people today?
Well, I never knew. Someone told me one time that it was beetle blood that was in the red velvet cake. But I think that might have just been like middle schoolyard kind of rumors that float around. It's really cool when you get to see someone take a passion they have and apply it to their livelihood. So do you ever get to use baking as a tool in youth group? Like, do you ever like make a really cool batch of cupcakes or something for Sunday nights or whenever you guys have youth group?
I would really, really love to integrate baking into some of the youth things that I do. Particularly, I think there's something really theological about the act of baking bread. Actually, my preaching project when I was in seminary was on the theology of baking cupcakes. I think that there's something really kind of sacred and that you can learn from the patience that it takes, particularly if we're thinking yeast versus not yeast. I mean, you can draw all sorts of connections, but the way that the yeast is a living organism that you have to care for and you have to kind of treat with gentleness and a patience so that it can do the kind of work that you want it to do when it eventually interacts with the other ingredients in the oven. I think that there's something really beautiful in the process that I think helps students draw some pretty recognizable and tangible and again tasty connections. The more that you can get youth using their hands and interacting and engaging with something rather than just talking at them, they're not going to remember the concepts that you talk at them, but they will probably remember the way that their hands felt when they were kneading the dough. And I think that there's something just as holy to the lessons that you learn years later as the ones that you learn in the moment, and the ones that you look back on that you didn't realize you were learning in the moment. One thing that I always think about with the ingredients that I use and the ingredients that I source, whether for cooking or baking, is how many hands have these ingredients passed through before it made it to this table, right? Like, did it start on a farm? Did it went through labor? It went through hands that ushered it into existence, from a seed to a sapling to what it is when it gets to our table. And I think there's something that connects more than just the people who are eating it or making it, but connects us as a whole and as a world when you really think about where your food comes from, and how it comes, right? And I think, we could talk at length too about why I think it's important to carefully source your ingredients. But I think that's one of the reasons, right? You are connecting yourselves to so many other lives when you enjoy a piece of bread at the table, and so many hands and so many people that you will never meet and never know, but who have played a significant role in that bread that you now get to enjoy. And I think that is in itself kind of beautiful and kind of holy, which is what makes it so special to me.
I like when we're doing these chats, when we kind of start getting down. We like to joke around a lot, but once in a while we'll hit on something that's really important. And what you're saying is really important, because I think we've become so disconnected with where our food comes from, and even what food is, what we accept as food now, right? And that's, I think that's, for me, that's been part of the beauty of the world we're living in right now, where you had to think about like where stuff comes from and who provides it and who is essential, right? People that we totally disregarded now are the most important people to us. That's beautiful. And,
absolutely.
And you had to think about like, where is my toilet paper coming from? And I was just joking, but at the same point, it's just like you just went and always got it, right? But more about food. Like, my wife and I always have loved to garden, and where we live now, we live on a mountainside, and it's a lot of trees and not much sun. And since we've lived here, we have not really had enough sun to be able to raise a garden. But now this summer, probably spurred on by having a lot of extra time, unstructured or restructured time. I don't know how we should think about that. We've gone out to a friend's house who has kind of a small farm, and we're raising a garden together with my friend and his family, and it's massive. It's gigantic, and we're now enjoying again the fresh vegetables. But here's what I'm getting at, where it's so much, and if you've ever raised your own food, you realize you're waiting, and then all of a sudden it's all there, right? And you're like, oh my God, what am I going to do with all of this? But but we've been able to share it with people that we work with. We've been able to share it. Just yesterday, I took a big load to the local agency that provides meals every day, because and it was interesting because sorry, I'm getting a little tangent here, but when I called them, I said, hey, I've got some produce for you. This is who I am. This is what I'm bringing. And the first thing the guy said on the phone is it fresh? Which tells me they get a lot of stuff donated that's
canned goods.
That's junk. It's just junk. No, like people are like, hey, I'm bringing you some lettuce. Well, because it's been sitting in the store for 10 days and we can't sell it, and now it's half rotten. I think what you were saying is really important.
Well, actually, you're obviously a very fun and goofy person in a super amazing way, but which means you can laugh at your own mistakes, which I think is an incredible skill to have. So otherwise you go through life miserable. So have you ever had like a giant like baking your meal explosion disaster?
One of my first ever cakes that I made. This is like pre-college, so maybe I shouldn't count it. Maybe I should count it as young, but it is still talked about at family get-togethers.
Yeah,
I was
that
excited.
qualifies. If it's still talked about.
Okay, good.
Qualifies.
I was excited to make a cake. I was kind of like given the task to make the birthday cake. And so I get all the ingredients. I'm like making a big deal out of it as my first homemade, totally homemade cake. And I make it and I'm like, I'm talking it up. Like I've spent so much time, like, guys, this cake is going to be so awesome. I'm so excited. It's a chocolate cake. I had like frosted it. Of course, maybe I used food coloring. I don't know, but it was awesome. And somebody takes a bite and immediately spits it out. And
no way.
yes,
Oh,
like fell out of their mouth. And everybody kind of started.
Or everyone?
Well, then everyone followed. Like everyone was kind of like, and I realized that I had used the amount of sugar that was called for in the cake was the amount of salt that I used. Not kidding. 100% not kidding. I put I'm pretty sure like a cup and a half of salt in
oh my
cake.
Gosh. Oh my gosh.
The trash can really, really, really enjoyed it that night.
No.
Scientifically speaking, I really don't know how that cake didn't just like totally blow up in the oven, but whatever. Whatever.
There was one time where I accidentally was like young, and instead of using a third of a cup of oil for brownies, I used 3 cups of oil for brownies.
Oh.
And so those things were like,
oh my god,
sludge.
That's like workout brownie. Like get all your calories in.
Ashley, I have always loved your humor and your spontaneity, and I'm just wondering if you've used that in baking and like just like totally surprise somebody with some type of a baked good or a meal. And
yeah, I have. I really actually, that's one of my favorite things to do. I love to make cakes for people for their birthdays. And it's always kind of a surprise the kind of recipe I concoct for them. But I also really love to, particularly when I have friends or coworkers who are stressed or feeling overwhelmed, that's like the most Southern I get is like my love of delivering a covered Pyrex dish casserole to somebody. I made a sweet potato quiche one time, which was really good and really fun. And sweet potato as the base, as the crust.
Oh yeah, we've just started using potato, like leftover baked potatoes or something like that for quiche. It's amazing.
So good. Yes, well, I highly recommend.
It's the best crust. Quiche is so good. Like you think you could think of a better name for it, right?
Or spell it better.
Wow, I'm in the minority. I kind of like the word quiche, but it's okay. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
It reminds me, and you guys may not know this. Ashley, maybe you will. There's a song called Quiche Lorraine by the B-52s.
Yeah.
By the B-52s, right?
Yeah, hey. I know that, bro.
Yeah, this is early. This is early B-52s. Back
I like the reunion album. We're getting off track.
Like with Rock Lobster and stuff like that. So, Ashley and Adam, I know that we all like to listen to NPR. Recently, I heard a story that said that there's in the pandemic, there's a bunch of people who have taken up baking, and I heard the word that was actually I thought was really clever, procrastinator. It's hard to say, which means people are using baking to avoid stressful situations. So what advice would you give to people who are maybe a little intimidated to start baking or ready to become more serious baker? I
would honestly probably say don't take it too seriously at first. Like let yourself have fun. I think that there is, especially with the internet, there is so much information out there. There's so much that you can learn. if you want to bake something, say you want to bake a chocolate cake, look up a few chocolate cake recipes, see what connects those recipes. What are the common things that appear in everyone's recipe? Probably flour. That's a great start. Make sure you have flour or gluten-free flour if that's what you use. Look at the commonalities between different recipes and then kind of let yourself have fun. Like, let yourself fail a little bit. I don't think baking is fun if you're so rigid that you don't let yourself make mistakes. I'm just grateful
like it's
for
okay if you put
cake.
a cup in if you can put a cup and a half of salt.
Exactly. Salt cake of '09 is a good lesson. It was longer than that, but I don't know. I say just don't take it too seriously. Have fun. Let yourself make a mess in the kitchen and let that be okay. I think especially if you're procrastinating, maybe you need to make a little mess in the kitchen. Just to let it all out, buddy. That's my advice. Make it personal.
I think that's a Reliant K song.
Let it all out.
Yeah.
Sadie Hawkins.
No.
Same one? Same song?
They got so much better songs than
I
that.
know.
Okay, spontaneous question time. Ready?
Woo! Yeah.
What are you watching on TV? That's good. And by TV, I know TV is not what I think of TV.
On the television.
Yeah.
On the tele.
What are you watching? What are you watching these days?
This is gonna be maybe a weird pivot.
It doesn't matter.
Okay, good. Me and my partner have been watching Leah Remini, Scientology and the Aftermath. It's a documentary series that aired on A&E from 2016 to 2019, and it is fascinating. It's amazing. It is so good. It's so well done. It's all about how Leah Remini, she starred in King of Queens, and it's about how she left Scientology, and it's bonkers, but it's amazing. It's amazing, and I want to recommend it to everyone. It won an Emmy, if that matters to you, and it's cool. So good.
Sounds a lot like what people say about our podcast.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, Ashley, thank you so much for being on the show today. It was totally a blast to have you on.
Thank you. It was fun to be here.
Thanks, Ashley. We'll talk to you later.
Later,
Thanks,
Ashley.
guys. See ya.
Wow, Adam, that was a lot of fun, man. Ashley always makes me laugh when I talk to her.
Yeah, it was really great having her on. I thoroughly enjoyed it. What about you? What was your favorite part?
What she was saying about people knowing or not knowing where their food comes from, and the importance of the actual food chain. Like, that really resonates with me. We're all tied together, and I think that's important. And it's so much more than what we normally think about on on our most basic levels. And
yeah,
what about you?
I really, really loved how she was able to take this talent of baking and share it with others. And she has built like this amazing community of friends that she was telling us about through baking and cooking. And I just really admired her ability to take this hobby and turn it into something where she experiences all of this joy and emotion with others when she unexpectedly makes something like a birthday cake for her friend. Well, I think that pretty much wraps it up for today. It was a really good interview today. What do you think?
Yeah, sure was.
Alrighty, well, that was The Inside. Special thanks today to our guest Ashley and our producer Dave. Our title music, Crossroads, was provided by Rock Sounds, with a link in the show description. Additional show music was written and performed by Keith Richards. We'll have more episodes coming soon, so make sure to listen to us wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at The Inside Podcasters, or send us an email to theinsidepodcasters@gmail.com.
Our coffee gives your first cup diarrhea.
God.
Our coffee's intense.
More than just the people who are eating it or making it, but connects us as a whole and as a world when you really think about where your food comes from, and how it comes, right?